Let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever.
Honorable members, I wish to acknowledge the presence of visitors from the Middle Ramu district and the staff, grade 9 and 11 student of Malalo International School, National Capital District, and the students and grade 8 students of Inawaya Primary School in Kairuku District, Central Province, are in the public gallery. On behalf of the National Parliament, I extend the visitors a warm welcome. Honorable members, we have a condolence message for our late Honorable Gabriel Caprice, MP, member for Maprik, Open Electorate. I will ask the Prime Minister.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to pay on behalf of our Parliament, on behalf of government, and on behalf of the people of Papua New Guinea to express our condolence motion on the passing of the late Honorable Gabriel Caprice, member for Maprik Open Electorate. And with this, honorable members, I move that this Parliament expresses its deepest regret at the death on the 13th of August 2023 of the member for Maprik Open Electorate, the late Honorable Gabriel Caprice, MP, and places on record our appreciation and recognition for his devoted services to the people of Maprik, and we extend our profound sympathies to his family, the people of Maprik, and the people of East Subic Province.
Yeah. Honorable Deputy Opposition Leader.
I moved the motion, so
the question is that the Honorable Prime Minister make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, the late Honorable Gabriel Caprice was a senior member of this House. He served from 2002 to 2017, or 2012 if I'm not wrong, I beg your pardon. And he re-entered Parliament again in 2022. His untimely passing is a shock to all of us, and I want to, on the government side, express again our condolences and sympathies to his family, his people. He was a strong member of the People's National Congress Party. We want to offer our sympathies also to the party for the loss of a member of the party. Politics can see us on the opposite side, but we always meet at the common ground. And the late Honorable Gabriel Caprice was a leader of substantial decorum on matters of public interest that is good for the country. We always approach it from a bipartisan approach. As an individual member, he had shown time in, time out on matters that is of value to the country he would stand to support the government's business from the opposite side on behalf of Pangu Party. The entire 54 members on our side, as well as the coalition government that I lead, we want to offer our condolences and sympathies on his untimely passing. God give it, God take it. There's nothing much we could do, and I just want to at this time also encourage all of us who are here, be conscious of our health, do medical tests, do regular checkup, eat well. Some of us don't sleep well, but we'll try to sleep well, and we have to be conscious of consequence of our lifestyle that sometimes lead to our untimely passings. But on this, on behalf of my party, Pangu Party, my family, my wife Rachel, my children, we'd like to offer our sincere condolences at the passing of this three-term member of parliament who in his many capacities as Minister of State, and in his leadership roles has played his part in contributing to where our country is today. May God bless his soul. May he rest well as he is rested from his duties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, Deputy Speaker, sorry. First of all, Mr. Deputy Speaker, supporting talk blow Prime Minister Blame now good talk Prime Minister been walking, and on behalf of the opposition leader, Honorable Joseph Leland, the PNC party leader, Honorable Peter O'Neill, I'd like to take this opportunity also to talk sorry a condolence blow the opposition and the PNC family. Number one, to the family of the late Gabriel Caprice, Honorable Gabriel Caprice, to the people of Maprik, Open, he represents, the people of Pacific, the PNC family, and more so, Mipla Liklik team inside the PNC family. Sore Bel Sore Blom Golo family blow late Gabriel Caprice. Bigla Sore Golo Mama Ikarimem. Time Mama Ikarimem, Mama bin Holimem na Hamma Sosem and Pignin Blend. Lo tribe blend. Na time em Lucimem, me plus Savers and family blame, Pilim Bigla heavy. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the late leader served 2 terms prior to his 3rd term election into this parliament. However, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you may sabe, osam you may got 2 appointment tasol lo ground. 1 appointment and time Mama Ikarim Yumi. The second appointment you may got time Papa God is seen out Yumi logo Manolo. In between that, it is the greatest opportunity in mankind's history, lo life blow me 1-1, to make certain that between Mama Ikarim you to the time of your death, that you achieve certain things in your life. Now you may ogara save, also in the last 2 terms when he first got elected into this parliament, he served in several senior ministries. Now when I'm something I'm achieving lo this time, purpose na calling blame, lo time I'm been born, na time I'm been die. Also na yumi lo mipla lo opposition, like talk thank you lo Papa God. Also I'm calling them awesome leader for the people of Maprik, the people of East Pacific, but more importantly for the people of Papua New Guinea. And mipla looks away. This man is a very humble man, a man of very few words. Time me come lo savelem, I came to understand him that he does not have enemies. He talks to everybody. Now it gives us the biggest challenge inside Legisla House also as leaders. How you may treat him one barata blame. Yes, politics by blame, part blame, inside life blame. But it is very important that you as leaders must learn to interact with each other. Because life is short. Also, Mr. Deputy Speaker, lo this time, me no sorry taso lo brother blame me, Honorable Gabriel Caprice has been losing me. But I also extend this condolence to the 14 others who have passed away in the short term of this parliament in the last four years. On behalf of the opposition and the PNC family, and on behalf of my family, we extend our condolences to his family, the widow, the children, and the people of Isipik and Maprik and the tribe. Thank you, and God bless him, soul bless him as he rests in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that the condolence motion be agreed in. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. As a mark of respect to the memory of the late honourable gentleman, I invite all honourable members to rise in their places. I thank the Parliament. Clerk, any petitions? Notices? Honourable members, we question time. The Honourable Member for Esala.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I recognize him. Member for Esala. My question is question without notice. You go towards Minister for Education and Science. This my question is directly affecting the Esala district. Some of my students, sponsored by the Esala district, towards to the University of Natural Science. I think it's also known as University of Woodhull in the past. We have spent a lot of money through my district sponsoring those students to the university, and recently there was a student unrest that affected my Esala students there. My question, my good minister, is that what action are you taking to make sure that those unrest don't take place again? And in the unrest, there was a number of action by the students who were perpetrators of that, promoting that unrest. They have burnt a lot of vehicles, damaged properties in the school, at the university. What action are you going to take against those perpetrators so those actions are not repeated again at the school? These are my questions to my good minister. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Higher Education.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is strategic and very relevant questions that the Honourable Member for SL asked, and I'm happy to answer them. The University of the Natural Resource and Environment is like all other universities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me emphasize to the country and especially to the higher education space
that the focus of the Mara Barroso government is quality. We must restore quality. Quality is paramount in the academic and technical skills programs that are run at the universities. That is the focus, and there are various strategies that the government is implementing through me as minister responsible. And the various strategies there. And one of those is, we like to see discipline, character, maturity, and standard from students. Very, very important ingredient of a university. But at the same time, we also demand quality governance, leadership, and management by the University Council and the administration. I've emphasized that to all the universities. I've met with the university councils, the chancellors, the chairpersons, the vice chancellors, the presidents of the universities. I've even talked to some of the student leaders too. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have established that governance processes in the universities must be complied with by the administration and by the student body and the community in the campuses. And that is in line with the national quality framework and the standard we're driving. Very, very important. So when the students raise those issues, some time back, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I realized that the UNRI had not been properly positioned to answering some of those issues, leg issues that had been there. For instance, 5 years of no financial auditing done in the university, which is also something that I find true for other universities too, legacy issues. So what I've done is I've positioned the university addressing those issues. And what have I done? I've done financial investigations, and I got a report out of UNRI 2 months ago. And there is also a board that was not in existence in place at the higher education sector called the Higher Education and Research Science Technology Board that recognizes programs of the universities or also looks at the registration of a university as per the National Quality Framework. So we have positioned those institutions to addressing those core or fundamental issues that the students may have raised or that I in the investigation will have found out. So I advise all the students in the universities that this is the approach that the government has taken, and therefore students should not, or staff should not go into taking law into their own hands, because there's a civilized process already in place as part of the governance and leadership. So that is the position that I've established. Mr. Deputy Speaker, for instance, if a student body like SRC would like to address an issue, the first place they go to is the student services at the university. If the student services of the university does not address the issue properly or adequately, then they take it further up to the vice chancellor or the president of the university. If they're not satisfied, then it goes to the chancellor or the chairperson of the board of the council. And if that is not satisfying whatever they're raising, then it comes up to the secretary's level. And then finally, the secretary is not managing it, then to the minister who advises the prime minister and the cabinet as to the issue that is at hand, and the minister tries to address it. So there is an established governance processes in place for students and staff to address issues at the university. But quickly resorting to violence, quickly running to the media, quickly trying to mobilize protests and so forth, that is uncivilized. That's backward. God accept this. Well, the process is stipulated in the University Act and the Higher Education Act. So it was normal for me to look at the issues that are raised And I have taken several steps. And I have said students are positioned the addressing of the university issues as well as other university issues. You do not need to go to a demonstration or go to a strike or sit in protest, whatever. Your issues are addressed. I've done an investigation already to support me, substantiate with the facts to address those particular issues and then provide the solutions to it. It's already being addressed, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But a student still, some of the students still chose to go to the actions that they've taken by burning down some vehicles that cost up to millions of kina, and then demand the Minister for Education to come and talk to them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can't. I cannot condone wrong. We're going to do a wrong to correct the wrong. So that's a step I've taken, but not by addressing those issues the way I've addressed, and I'm addressing issues to the legislators. I'm addressing them one by one in an entanglement, and I'm untying the knots, and we're addressing them to position the UNRE to be the best quality university we want to be. So, and I've put the University Council in charge. It's a permanent council now from being an interim council for a long time. They've suspended the SRC. The police has moved in. They've arrested the students, 51 of them, but then they realized that about 5 or 6 of them, they're the main ringleaders, so they're probably being talked to by the university, by the police while working with the University Council. So that's why it is. The students, I've advised them to go back to class this morning. I just launched a workshop of the higher education sector, and I talked to the Chancellor, Grand Chief, Dr. John Momis. I talked to the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Pue, and they're telling me that they organize it, they take things under control, and the students beginning to look at what they've done and going back to class. So I'm closely working with them, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And what about the unrest? And what action am I taking? Those who are criminals will face the rule of the law. I will not encourage ministers going down to addressing issues that can be addressed administratively. That culture is wrong. We must allow the systems to address the issues. We'll strengthen the institutions, we'll strengthen the processes, and let them address the issue. And that's what I'm doing with the UNRE to answer the Honorable Member for Saleh's question. The students at the from East Electorate, I'd like to, through you, Deputy Speaker, ask the Honorable good member, Faisala, and others on the floor of Parliament to encourage students in their electorates to go back to class, because what they're doing is foolish. They use the address, and I think the students are motivated by outside private interests and not academic interest. I'm very much involved in it. I see it. And the students must go back to school. I advise everyone to encourage your students to go back to classes. While those ringleaders who are perpetrating crime, they must be treated as criminals. That is going to be the position throughout all universities. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for Oro.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. My questions are to the good Minister for Department of Personal Management, and I'd like the Ministers for Treasury, the Ministers for Finance and Planning to take note. The questions are in relation to an audit report that was presented to the Prime Minister on the 15th of June 2023 this year by the Special Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reforms, and then also presented on to the Minister for Department of Personal Management. This audit came about as a result of some work initiated by the O'Neill government in 2014, but eventually has been completed by the government of Marape Rosso, and the report has been presented to the Minister, good Minister for Department of Personal Management, And I'm asking this question so that we may inform the people of this country what is happening insofar as this audit report is concerned regarding the massive blowout that we face every year in paying our government payroll. So since this has been in the media, it's only appropriate that we inform the people what is happening with this situation. Now, I understand the good minister and his department have been undertaking some work already based on that report, but perhaps he can inform us as to what they are doing with the report that was presented, the establishment of the ministerial committee, and therefore the endorsement of the technical committee that's going to implement the 74 recommendations that came from that report, and what actions he will undertake as the chairman of that ministerial committee. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Department of Personal Management.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the Governor for almost 3 questions to ask, who is also the chairman of the Public Sector Reform Parliamentary Committee and his committee. Firstly, I'd like to commend through you, Acting Speaker, the Governor, for his keen interest and also taking the leadership role in the Parliamentary Committee to keep a proper check and balance on the executive government, and also for working towards making sure that we try our very best to, I will not say that we reduce the government payroll, I mean in terms of our government wage bill, because if you say that, Mr. Acting Speaker, you would also have at the back of your mind the ever-increasing number of teachers that we need, and the increased number of health workers that we need, and the increased number of police personnel that we need because of the increased population. You can only talk about reducing the wage bill of our payroll bill if we control the population of this country. But for as long as the population of this country increases, you would obviously need more teachers, more health workers, and more police personnel. So that's from the asset. So when one says that you will drastically decrease the manpower cost in this country, at the back of your mind, you should also be mindful that the population of this country is almost increasing every month, every year. So, Mr. Acting Speaker, that's the issue. Now, going back to the question that the good chairman and the governor has asked, yes, the report was presented to the Prime Minister, and then from there it has to be gone through. We have to follow the process, so it goes through NEC, and then from the NEC had to approve the formation and the establishment of the Ministerial Committee, which I was privileged to chair, and the inclusion of Minister for Treasury, Minister for Finance, and Minister for ICT. We have not met yet as the Ministerial Committee, but the Secretariat has already started working. The Secretariat is headed by the Chief Secretary. They've met 2 times. I'm fully briefed almost every week on what they're doing. As far as my department is concerned, we've already started progressing the implementation of the 11 recommendations by Deloitte. 11. So those 11 recommendations by Deloitte, my department has started. I want to inform the good governor and the chairman, through you, Acting Speaker, that we've started cleansing the payroll with our own department, my own department, the Department of Personal Management, and also Milne Bay PHA and Milne Bay Provincial Administration. So those 2 are in progress, and we will start to flow down. So administratively and within the government bureaucracy, we've already started. Sometimes we take it for sometimes we may misunderstand that because the ministers and us politicians are not meeting and working, we think that the public servants are not working, but they're actually working. So they've met 2 times, and they were looking on that report with 11 recommendations. Apart from that, I would like to inform the Parliament also, through you, Acting Speaker, that we've also, my department has already purchased and installed the new version of the Alaska Payroll, version 2021. So they are now progressing to identify what is happening in there so that we can deal with it. Finally, I'd like to also assure the House and the people of Papua New Guinea that we are doing all our very best through my department to see that our sister agencies like the Finance Department and Treasury, working together with my department, I'd like to also inform the House and members of the Parliament through your Speaker that all of us should know that we don't actually see the money that goes to our public servants, although it's budgeted for under its agency head. For example, provincial administrations under item 111, you have your budget there, appropriation there, but it goes directly from payroll in finance. So those are information that we must also know. The Department of Personal Management doesn't see the money. The Department of Personal Management keeps the records of all our well over 130,000 public servants in this country. So just for information's sake, about extending on from the good governor's question and also the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reform, we are doing our best, and the Chief Secretary is also at work. And finally, I'd like to also inform the Honorable House that the budget is being put together. Some of the recommendations will require budgetary support because it's not going to be cheap to cleanse the system, and not just cleansing it, but putting a system that will do a tracking system to identify if there are loopholes. And I think one of the problems that we face in this country, as far as payroll is concerned, is the offline payment. The offline payment is, Mr. Acting Speaker, is the payment that is processed for leave fares, for allowances and all that. That's the kind of payment that sometimes we don't keep record of. So that's the part that we want to scrutinize. But I will assure the good governor and the chairman that we will report back as soon as we start the process. But our budget is prepared now for next year, and we'll be able to secure enough money to get the job done and fully implement the 11 recommendations by Deloitte. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kerawagi.
Deputy Speaker for Recognize the People of Kerawagi. My question without notice directed to our good Minister for Internal Security. I actually have three questions, three issues. Regarding the three important disciplinary forces in this country, police, defense, and SIS. We have seen nowadays that people never get scared of police now at this time and all. One of the reasons that I have seen is the community becomes lawlessness, and the people never get scared of police. People with high weapons now today in the community, the weapons that they are holding, it's more advanced than the weapons that we give to the police. We have a lot of government programs and policies in place, like this government is having a lot of good programs. In order for that to be effective in the society, in the district, we have to have sound laws. People must have to be good community citizens. My question with this, Mr. Speaker, is can we give the human powers back to the three different forces? The attitude of people in our country is bad. There are a lot of people, police has been charged because of executing their duties out of the normal course of duties. When they have something done something wrong, while executing duties, they were charged. A lot of police now, they lost their jobs and entitlements because of police. The human rights lawyers came in when they do something out of their course of duties. My question is, can we give full human powers back to the police? Can we set some bodies that they can able to represent the police, the three different forces between the court and the government to hear the cases so that they can be protected. Mr. Speaker, nowadays, when you look at when there's a trouble, the police are reluctant to attend to the scene. Because when they do anything wrong there, they'll be charged for that. So my question is, can we have given the full human powers back to the three different forces? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister for Internal Security.
Thank you, my honourable member Blong Kirawagi. Thank you, good question, Blue. This is a important question that continues to be pressed upon particularly our frontliners, which are policemen and women out trying to enforce law and order. And I think that is your question demands that we, as a police force, need to ensure that our men and women out carrying out their duties are protected by law so that they can enforce. And so, Deputy Speaker, as part of our reforms, igat this la look blomipla long strengthening this la laws law, ensuring all men and women out that are policing our country also be protected when they carry out their full duties. So, Member Blomi of Kirawagi, you may look strong lo this lo by me help him all policeman Mary Blumi. So I just want to assure the Honourable House and Deputy Speaker and remember that it is of our priority that we ensure that our men and women are being protected, and including our own internal affairs too, in ensuring that we're protecting the welfare of our men and women that are carrying out their duties out in the country.
Honourable Member for Northeast, you have a supplementary, right?
Deputy Speaker, thank you. I want to ask supplementary question to the Minister, but I want to simplify what the member for Kirawagi said. 20 years back.
Honourable Member, you go straight to your supplementary.
Okay,
question.
my supplementary is that every time policemen and army personnel people are dead in the hands of our people, criminals or trouble fighter or whatever, what policies the government is looking to give them a teeth to bite. If they hold a weapon, they don't care. Before you get there, they get you, they shoot you. And that is on record, you have seen it. Are we going to come up with a policy, guideline, that will help our policemen and women, disciplinary process, so that they can actively enforce the law and also protect our citizens and the property? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Minister, Internal Security.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Good luck question. I think as a matter of for the Honourable House to take note of police engagement, they have got a rule of engagement. Unless and until their life is at imminent risk, then they will use the full force. So it's case by case, Deputy Speaker, in all scenarios of our country. At most, we will try to negotiate the situation. And then we take the full force, because again, the human rights is always very explicit. And so our men have been trained and they will upscale the rules of engagement given that particular scenario. So I'm through, you may facing more challenges, but be rest assured the way we are now reforming and upskilling our men and women in the force, they will have the ability to be able to first and foremost assess, which they're already doing now, but in terms of the challenges that we face at this point in time, there's a greater need for our numbers to improve, and upskilling, continuous upskilling of our men and women in those particular scenarios. And so I just want to give comfort to our leaders that as part of our ongoing training, these are some of the challenges identified, and we're putting that specifically in our training so that our men and women, when they are posed in such a scenario, they can manage those situations. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abao.
Is directed at the hard-working treasurer and member for TVWAN. Deputy Speaker, I've got two questions to the Honourable Treasurer. But just a very short preamble. In our efforts as a government to promote SMEs throughout the country, because we know that a very strong SME base will help cushion many of the international shocks that come to our country. And so in Abao, for example, we have helped a lot of small businesses registered with IPA and IRC. However, when it comes to winning contracts, and usually most of them are 100,000 small contracts, two things happen, and therefore the basis of my two questions. One is when the district treasury raises a check, there is a 10% GST discount immediately. Immediately, the discount is automatic. And when the SME gets his check and goes to a service provider, they also charge them another 10% GST. So in our efforts to help and promote SMEs, could the Honourable Treasurer advise the Honourable House, where is this coming from and what is the basis for this? Because my own opinion is, I think we are double jeopardizing our small business people. So can the Honourable Treasurer review this particular undertaking, if it's coming from Treasury or Internal Revenue Commission, or because it's a serious situation. And when the check is brought to the commercial bank, my recent experience was a check raised through the normal process, procurement process, took 6 weeks for a commercial bank to approve, finally approve. 6 weeks. By then, the price of goods that the contractor was going to procure had also gone up. And so, what has happened, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is, and if the Treasurer is aware, that on the 13th of May, 2011, the Financial Intelligence Unit of the Central Bank issued an instruction to the central bank, to the commercial banks, to make sure that any government check that is presented to the commercial bank follow those strict requirements because of the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing issues that our commercial banks and central bank has signed up to. We are all aware of that. But one issue that I have found out, and if the Treasurer can respond to this or find out, is that 13th of May 2011 instruction with regard to the commercial banks to properly monitor the checks coming from provincial governments or districts is issued under the provisions of the Crime Procedure Act, Procedure of Crime Act 2005, which means that 2011 instruction by the FIU of the central bank is outdated, because in 2015 we made the amendments to the Procedure of the Crime Act. And so in my view, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that the instruction in 2011 is an overkill and outdated. And I strongly recommend the Treasurer, if he can sit down with the central bank and review it, because it will help everybody in the name of service delivery and in the name of our government supporting SME. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the member for Abao for his very relevant questions, raising issues that frustrate all stakeholders in both the private and public sectors, and especially customers and SMEs, as he's advised this morning. On his two questions, the first one was the way in which government as a whole are collecting GST, and his second question on relevant parts of the relevant laws that are being implemented by FASU, or the Financial Intelligence Unit. Can I firstly respond to his first question and advise the House that GST collections are a very important part of government revenues. Of our total tax revenues of 14.9 billion to be collected this year, GST represents 3.3 billion kina. So that's a very important part of our tax revenue measures, and it's one aspect of government that we want to make sure we can continue to do so efficiently but fairly. There were some amendments made last year by the IRC in their pursuit of trying to be more efficient with tax collections, which I know all of us in this House support. Section 65A of that particular legislation allows or directs that all payments made by the Department of Treasury, including at the subnational level, they could then deduct the 10% GST component. And they did this because we were aware that there was a gaping hole in the collections of GST from these particular payments, and this was one way of trying to collect it. But I know that in the process there has been certain examples where there has been double collections, and if these are accurate, then obviously IRC would need to sit down with the relevant agencies and ensure that processes are put in place to make sure this doesn't happen. And if I can assure the member for Abao, as well as all of our SMEs throughout the country, this will be an outstanding task that Treasury will follow up with. So thank you. In relation to the second question, I need to be fully appraised on those specific legislation that you mentioned, and so I'm happy to take that on board and report back to the House as soon as I'm fully briefed on that. But lastly, Mr. Speaker, if I can also assure the House, I know that in addition to the two issues raised by the member for Abao, there is the continuing frustrations that members of Parliament as well as members of the private sector are facing with just the simple encashment of checks. That, in the example you gave, was 6 weeks. That continues to be an ongoing issue that government is working on, and it's taking a long time to try and shorten the process to cash checks, because it cuts across multiple agencies. We need to deal with the three agencies that implement the anti-money laundering laws that we have in Papua New Guinea, and they are Department of Finance, commercial banks, as well as the central government. It also requires a very detailed look at our anti-money laundering law, the AML and CTF Act of 2015, to study and identify whether the interpretation of our 3 implementing agencies of that act are appropriate, and to identify where we can cut some of the red tape that are creating these delays. The plan that we took on when I took over as Treasurer 4 years ago was to give very clear instructions to the 3 governors that we've had that this was one of the main, if not the #1 issue facing members of Parliament, where it's not only creating frustration but anger. And I've asked our 3 governors to complete a review to identify the impediments and provide solutions on how we can deal with this. Sadly, and to date, I have yet to receive a brief on that. So that's an outstanding task which I'll need to follow up with. As a result of the absence of those briefs, I did raise at this year's annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank in Korea, I did raise my hands to the US Department of Treasury to advise Mr. Caproth that we in Papua New Guinea needed help from the US Department of Treasury with this particular legislation, and I did assure them that the AML-CTF Act is a good law, but there are unintended consequences, one of which is what you raised today. And if he could send us staff from Washington, not just to come here like the World Bank and IMF just for 2 or 3 weeks, but to settle here in Moresby for at least 6 to 12 months, to sit down with our 3 agencies and work through these issues and provide to government a clear solutions, including legislative amendments, if any. But thank you for raising the matter, and I will follow up and provide a report back to Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for Southern Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Before I ask my questions without notice to the Minister for Labour and Employment, let me recognize the students who are here to witness how leaders of the country behave and conduct their business in Parliament. So may I recognize all students who said he come. My series of questions, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is in relation to the country's preparation in terms of technical and skilled manpower workforce in anticipation of Papua LNG coming on board, in anticipation of Pinyang coming on board, in anticipation of WAFI and other big projects coming on board. How is the country, through the government, preparing the skilled manpower and skilled technical people that will be required for these impact projects? I'll go to the prepared question, but I say this because when the PNG LNG came on board, we thought the country was prepared in terms of the labor and workforce. But it gave us a shock when we realized that the country was not prepared with the technical manpower and skills that were required, and we brought in Filipinos and all kinds of people to come and work for us. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, my series of questions without notice at the background there is directed to the Minister for Labour and Employment, Honourable Casey Sawong, in relation to the technical and skilled labour requirement for the Papua LNG project, the Pinyang project in the pipeline, and of course some of the other projects that the government has announced. Mr. Speaker, in the first PNG LNG project, the country did not have adequate number of technical skills and workforce, and so the proponents of the project brought in skilled people from Philippines and elsewhere for the construction phase of the project. The PNG market did not have all the skilled manpower required for this project. Mr. Speaker, my first question is, what is the Department of Labour and Employment, as the most appropriate government agency, doing in terms of consultation with the industry or with the stakeholders to establish the total skilled manpower requirements for these projects? We need to know as a country. I ask these questions based on the lack of preparedness of the total skilled manpower requirement of these important projects in our country. What are the skills or type of technical expertise that will be required, and how many? As a country, we should have some preparedness leading our people for this requirement. Does the country have this expertise or workforce? We need to prepare ourselves as a nation for this requirement. Mr. Speaker, in terms of training institutions, my second question, and manpower requirement, is the Department of Labor and Employment and other relevant agencies of government have any plans for a national training facility to train our people for the manpower requirement for mass engagement and employment of our skilled workforce, or no? If yes, Mr. Speaker, can the Minister inform this Parliament and the people of Papua New Guinea what plans or which training facilities are there to train our local technical skills manpower requirement? We cannot continue to allow Filipinos and everybody else to come and do our technical work in this country. These projects are being announced. We must prepare our workforce. Mr. Deputy Speaker, no. Can the good minister assure Parliament and the people of Papua New Guinea that there is consultation and collaboration with the industry and the training facilities for this total labor requirement have been established by the government? And so give us confidence. Assure this, give hope to our people. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I want to raise this as the country progresses to implement or get some of these major projects. We must prepare our people with the technical skilled workforce, because I say this from the experience on the PNG LNG project, where we did not have all the skill requirement and we depended from overseas workforce to come and work in our country. So thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Labour.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I want to thank the Governor for Southern Islands for a very important question. And he's rightly pointed out that we have a lot of learnings from the PNG LNG project, so we don't repeat the same in the upcoming resource projects. So from the outset, I want to inform this Honorable House and the people here that the Marape Rosso government is actually very keen on how Papua New Guineans can be employed, can have jobs in these resource projects. So in our medium-term development plan 4 that has recently been launched, it has a target of actually 1 million jobs by 2027. And it actually gives which sectors the jobs should come from. And petroleum and resource projects has a target of 15,000 jobs. This target of 1 million jobs by 2027 is ambitious but achievable plan. When you look at the medium-term the PNG Strategic Development Plan 2010 to 2030, it sets a national target of 2 million jobs. But I must inform this House, I don't know if there's any review that has been undertaken in these 30 years to see whether we have achieved that. But in this government, it has broken down into 5 years of these 1 million jobs. And I want to just concentrate now on the question that he has raised about the resource sector. And first of all, Mr. Acting Speaker, on consultation, yes, when I was appointed in July, after 2 weeks, I had the first consultation with Total Energies. I met with the managing director and the senior management of Total for this very thing and about nationalization of our workforce in the resource sector. And resource projects, they give a significant opportunity that could provide more jobs. It will support skills development and boost national productivity. And of course, improve the labor market outcomes. So in the discussion, it was very interesting. It will come down to the second question. I asked the same question. How do you train the people? How do you identify the people who should have the skills gap, and what skills do you need? So this is something that not only the government does. We need to work in collaborative partnerships, first of all, with the resource developers, because they will tell us what skills they need. So I want to also inform Mr. Acting Speaker that what has my department done on that. So we have a national employment policy, and that policy, actually I read the policy when I was appointed the minister, and it reports absence of public employment service, and it targets the employment matching service for job seekers. So that will link even the employers. You have the job seekers, employers, and their skills. And then there is also a labor market information policy in place, and that seeks to develop a web-based job exchange, occupational database, and career navigator. So when I saw it actually means that the government has to work with, in collaboration and partnership with the resource developers. So I had a discussion with the managing director of Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited, because KPHL actually developed a platform called One PNG. And One PNG is like the LinkedIn of Papua New Guinea, where job seekers and employers go there to match each other what jobs are. Because at the moment, we really don't know how many skilled people are out there, because we haven't conducted a labor force survey. We don't know what institutions need, what sort of skills they need. And our Prime Minister has actually directed our Minister for Dehurst to conduct a labor market information survey. And that labor market information survey is the survey of firms and businesses, and it is focused on identifying the demand and skills, demand and supply for skills, and it works out what training is required and what training needs to be provided to our people. So on that labor market survey, we will await our Dehurst Minister to present on what skills are there. But in terms of what we are doing, like I said, we need that collaborative approach, and One PNG will be officially launched in a few weeks' time, and that is the system where we expect our employers, our employees, or potential employees to use. So it actually gives us an idea about what the labor market is out there, because at the moment we don't have any data to present. So on the other question on Mr. Acting Speaker, skilled manpower requirements, like I said, the idea of nationalization of the workforce, the national content plan is with the Department of Petroleum and Energy. So that captures especially the workforce requirement for the resource project in our country, as we have these back-to-back projects. So as a minister, like, my focus is not only on the construction phase, because as you know, in the extractive industry, a lot of people get employed during the construction phase, and thereafter, all these people are pushed out there into the economy. So we got to also have a long-term plan that how do we develop these people, and after the construction phase of a project is over, how do we deploy them into other areas? Like, we have back-to-back resource projects, how do we deploy them? And second, how do we use the skills they have to export them and not only send people out on labor mobility that do fruit picking, but more experienced skill in the skills area. So these are some of the things that we are working on, Mr. Acting Speaker. And in terms of the training institute, I understand that Kumul Academy down at POMTEC was used to train people during the PNG LNG project, and that is available. With my discussion with Total, they informed me that they're actually sending people to Unitec and to existing institutions for skills development. So that's another option. Instead of building a new training institute, that's something we could do in looking at building the capacity of the existing universities. So our people who are identified for the skills training can use existing institutions. So on his other question regarding collaboration, like I said, I have spoken with KPHL, and I think it is an institution that can really help the Marape Rosso government's target of creating 1 million jobs in terms of building the resources, like the One PNG program that I mentioned. And I am happy that our Prime Minister is the trustee of KPHL, and this is something he can approve and give us more support so we can set these systems that actually helps our people and help our employers. And Mr. Acting Speaker, I will give a detailed written response to our good governor, and I thank him for the opportunity to brief this parliament. And thank you.
Honourable members, our question time has lapsed. Papers. Honourable members, pursuant to statutes the Honourable Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave of this House to make an important but a very brief announcement on the banking sector.
Honourable members, is the leave granted? Honourable Treasurer, take your speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning on the Australian Stock Exchange, and as communicated to my office by the head of Westpac Bank here in Papua New Guinea, Westpac have announced that it will keep its banking operations in PNG and no longer try to sell its business. Most importantly, its operations going forward will continue to cover both the retail and the commercial sectors. This is very good news for Papua New Guinea. It's good news for staff, it's good news for customers, and it will now allow 4 banks to continue operating in our country, which supports competition, a primary objective of our government within this sector. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, this is another very positive sign of the growing confidence of international investors in Papua New Guinea under the Marape Rosso government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, pursuant to statutes, I present the annual report of the Auditor General Office for the year ending 31st December 2020. Leader of Government Business, Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Parliament take note of the paper and the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Honourable members, pursuant to statute, I present the annual report of the Office of the Public Solicitor for the year 2022. Leader of Government Business.
Speaker, I move that the Parliament take note of the paper and the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Honourable members, pursuant to statute, I present the report of the Auditor General relating to the accounts of Provincial Services Improvement Programme and Provincial Services Grant of the New Ireland Province for the fiscal year 2015 to 2020. The Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee.
I move that Parliament take note of the paper and that the report be referred to the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Honourable members, pursuant to statute, I present the Part 3 report of the Auditor General relating the account of provincial and local level government and associate entities for the year 2017 to 2021. The Chairman of Public Accounts Committee.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Parliament take note of the paper and the report be referred to the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Ministerial statement. The Honourable Minister for Internal Security.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, my Honourable House. My statement today will be on the functions and challenges of internal security in Papua New Guinea and the plans to formulate a white paper on internal security. Deputy Speaker, today I stand before you to address a matter of utmost importance, the internal security situation in Papua New Guinea. As representatives of the people, it is our responsibility to safeguard the well-being and stability of our nation. And it is crucial that we confront the challenges we face head-on. Papua New Guinea has been grappling with various internal security issues, and it is imperative that we acknowledge them openly and honestly. Crime rates, including instances of violence, theft, and drug-related offences, have risen alarmingly in recent years, posing a significant threat to the safety and security of our citizens. Additionally, the presence of organized crime groups and illicit trade engaged in further exacerbates the situation, undermining our efforts towards progress and development. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the issue of tribal conflicts that persist in certain regions of our country. These conflicts, fueled by historical grievances, land disputes, and socio-economic disparities, continue to disrupt communities, displace families, and hinder the establishment of lasting peace and stability. It is our duty to address the root causes of these conflicts and work towards their resolution through dialogue, mediation, and equitable development initiatives. Deputy Speaker, in light of these challenges, I assure you that the government is fully committed to ensuring the internal security of Papua New Guinea. We recognize that a multifaceted approach is necessary to effectively tackle these issues and protect our citizens. And therefore, we will focus on several areas of action. Firstly, we will prioritize law enforcement and enhance capacity of our police force. This includes strengthening training programs, equipping police officers with necessary resources, and ensuring that personnel are adequately distributed across the country. We will work towards increasing the number of police officers, improving their skills in investigation and crime prevention, and fostering better coordination with relevant government agencies. Secondly, we will take decisive steps to combat organized crime and reduce the influence of illicit activities in our society. This will involve bolstering our intelligence capabilities, enhancing our border control measures, and working closely with our international partners to address transnational crime networks. We will enact stricter legislation and enforce stronger penalties for those involved in organized criminal activities. Thirdly, we will prioritize community engagement and empowerment. We understand that sustainable security cannot be achieved solely through law enforcement measures. We will promote community-oriented initiatives that encourage dialogue, foster trust, and empower local communities to take ownership of their security. By addressing the underlying social, economic, and political factors contributing to crime and conflict, we can build resilient communities that are more resistant to violence and criminal activities. Lastly, we will emphasize regional cooperation and partnerships. We recognize that many security challenges we face are not confined to our borders. By strengthening collaboration with our regional counterparts, sharing information, and engaging in joint operations, we can effectively combat transnational crimes such as drug trafficking, human smuggling, that pose a threat to our national security. Deputy Speaker, since my appointment as the Minister responsible for internal security, it has become clearer to me that internal security must be seen holistically. While RPNGC plays the lead enforcement role, their work cuts across other national security functions that are under the mandate of other government agencies. What this means is that we must look more strategically at how we can leverage our limited resources to prevent crime from taking place. Let me now briefly summarize the functions of our internal security apparatus. Functions of internal security in Papua New Guinea. Deputy Speaker, as I have already said, internal security in Papua New Guinea is primarily the responsibility of the RPNGC, Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary, which is the country's national police force. The RPNGC is tasked with maintaining law and order, ensuring public safety, and protecting the rights and freedoms of our people. More broadly, the functions of internal security in Papua New Guinea include law enforcement. RPNGC is responsible for enforcing laws, investigating crimes, apprehending offenders. They work to prevent, detect criminal activities, and maintain public order and protect citizens from threats to their safety and security. Secondly, crime prevention. RPNGC engages in proactive measures to prevent crime and reduce incidents of criminal activities. This includes community policing initiatives, public awareness campaigns, and working closely with local communities to address the underlying causes of crime. 3, border security. Papua New Guinea shares borders with Indonesia and Australia, as well as maritime borders in the Pacific. Internal security forces play a crucial role in safeguarding countries' borders, preventing illegal border crossing, smuggling, and other transnational crimes. 4, counterterrorism. Papua New Guinea, like many other countries, face potential threats from terrorism. Internal security agencies work to identify and neutralize potential terrorist threats, monitor extremist activities, and collaborate with international partners to combat terrorism. Maintaining public order is 5. RPNGC is responsible for maintaining public order during demonstrations, protests, and other public gatherings They ensure that these events remain peaceful and that the rights of individuals are respected. Emergency response. Internal security forces in Papua New Guinea play a vital role in responding to emergencies such as natural disasters, public health crises, and civil disturbances. They coordinate efforts with other agencies to provide assistance, maintain order, and safeguard the well-being of the population. 7, intelligence gathering. Internal security agencies collect and analyze intelligence to identify potential security threats, criminal networks, and other risks. This information is used to inform operational strategies, investigations, and prevention.
Hello, I'm Maricela Kelleton with the news update. Water is slowly being restored to the city. Last night, calls were made to Koyari landowners to restore water and power supply to Port Moresby. Member for Hiri Koyari, in a media statement late Tuesday evening, made an appeal to the aggrieved parties. He also made the appeal in person to the chairpersons of the 4 Koyari landowner companies to call off the protest and remove the blockade. Before that, MP Iduhu raised the matter in Parliament, and the response was that Treasury has issued a 5 million kina warrant. On Tuesday, Chairman of the Central Sugeri Holdings Limited, Arua Salesoge, told media they will not destroy assets but will camp outside the Rona 2 hydropower station until their demands were fully met.
Or any assets, that's the assurance we can give. In return, this is our demand to pay 15 million today so that we can happily exit from this area.
It seems the answer to that can only be given properly if there is some reassurance by the good Prime Minister to our people of Port Moresby and Papua New Guinea to hear whether this Rona Koyari people could be settled very, very quickly. Otherwise, businesses are also going to shut down, operations will shut down in the city.
33 constituencies in the autonomous region of Bougainville are currently implementing a strategic program known as the Bougainville Internal Independence Readiness. This crucial program, endorsed by the autonomous Bougainville Government House of Representatives in a parliamentary motion 2 years ago, is specially designed for communities to develop the overall socio-economic, political and spiritual aspects of their livelihoods as they journey through the critical political journey to independence. The program involves the implementation of 6 key areas of set benchmarks: good governance, rule of law, economic development, human resource development, quality of life, and social services. The community governments have been directed to execute the Independence Ready strategy by 2025. The independence declaration date set by each of the constituency. The Securities Commission of Papua New Guinea, the regulatory authority overseeing the capital market of Papua New Guinea, has granted crucial exemptions for the merger between the global gold giant Newmont Corporation and Newcrest Mining Limited. Newmont Managing Director Business Unit Alwyn Pretorius said during the grant exemptions for the merger between Newmont and Newcrest that from the very beginning, one of the major components of the attraction of this transaction to Newmont was the ability to acquire the Lihir mine in New Ireland and also to become a joint venture partner in the Wafi Golpu project. He said they have been very pleased during the last few months with the progress that they have been able to make with the negotiations with Newcrest and also with the regulatory authorities, including those in Papua New Guinea.
And the Mineral Resource Authority. So we're very pleased to have reached that major milestone. And following the closure of the transaction, Newmont has made a commitment to the Commission that we will replace the existing Newcrest listing on the PNGX with a PDI of Newmont, so that the people of PNG and PNG investors will have the opportunity to invest in the world's largest gold company and the operator of Lihir and one of the joint venture partners in the Wafi-Golpu project. And this is particularly, we believe it's particularly attractive to the investors in PNG because it will give them an opportunity to participate in Newmont's operating and project capability, in its sustainability and environmental and social performance, in its technical and commercial capability, its strong balance sheet, and also the very attractive shareholder returns that the company has been able to generate over the past years.
The World Indigenous Business Forum, a global platform that will bring together Indigenous business entrepreneurs, business leaders, policymakers, and stakeholders, received additional support from Steamships Trading Company on Tuesday. Steamships announced its platinum sponsorship in kind of the forum through its hospitality division, the Coral Sea Hotels, in the presence of Richard Maru, Minister for International Trade and Investment. Minister Maru says Steamships coming on board as a sponsor for the forum makes it more affordable for both local and international forum delegates who will be traveling to Port Moresby to attend the forum. In regional news, residents in Victoria's Gippsland region are well versed in dealing with bushfires, but many in the community say they weren't expecting such an early start to this year's fire season and are now preparing their emergency plans.
It was a close call for Liz Faulkner and her partner when the Black Summer bushfires ravaged Gippsland in late 2019.
It was pretty terrifying.
She was forced to evacuate her home in Beatballong when the fires got too close. Fortunately, her house escaped the inferno, but she's concerned about what lies ahead.
The dryness, the below average rainfall over the last few months, all of that combined makes me just a wee bit nervous.
To avoid another close call, she started cleaning up around her property and clearing her gutters.
If we're not here but it's under ember attack, then, clearing around the house, keeping on top of that.
Andy Bennett has defended his remote property in Goongerah from several major bushfire events through the years. He wasn't expecting to do so this early in the year.
I had been saying to people that I didn't think we were going to have a season this year again. The last two fire seasons have been pretty much a non-event.
East Gippsland is still recovering from the Black Summer bushfires, and with the declaration of an El Niño, there are fears fires will return sooner than expected. But authorities say they're ready for whatever happens.
In addition to the 175 additional project firefighters this year, we'll also have a fleet of aircraft across the state with 10 based in Gippsland.
But locals are anxious.
I think, people are quietly nervous like I am.
I'm trying not to swear. There's so much more likely that it's going to totally hit the fan.
A community still on edge.
Fiji's Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka says the U.S. Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Meeting is a critical platform to hold one-on-one interactions with President Joe Biden and address national issues. This marked Rabuka's first participation in the summit since taking office, and he described it as an enlightening experience. The Prime Minister said the Leaders Summit in Washington reflected how far Fiji and other small island developing states have come in gaining recognition from world superpowers. The Prime Minister said that with the likely chance of the U.S. Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Meeting becoming an annual thing, it reflects the South Pacific as a stable region. New police powers to scan people for weapons have begun in the Northern Territory, with hundreds already checked by handheld ones and a dozen potential weapons found. The laws were introduced to NT Parliament on urgency earlier this year after a series of stabbing attacks and alleged murders by edged weapons.
A scan, a search, and a pair of scissors pulled out of a bag.
It's totally random. If they're in this particular area, which has been declared an authorised area, then anyone within that area can be tested and checked.
Northern Territory Police today put on a display of their new so-called wanding powers at Palmerston Bus Interchange, with passengers scanned and searched for weapons, some supportive of the new measures.
It's overdue, long time overdue.
I reckon it's fair enough because it's for the safety of other people.
It's a good idea. Yeah, keep everybody safe.
The new powers, which have just been rolled out, were made into law earlier this year after multiple stabbings, including the alleged murder of bottle shop worker Declan Laverty and of a 51-year-old Aboriginal woman killed outside a Darwin hotel.
We've seen 399 people wanted with 12 weapons detected. 10 have been seized. Out of that, we've had 6 cautions.
It's a very clear message. Don't go armed in public.
Police say the first wanding operations in Alice Springs and Katherine have already turned up numerous pairs of scissors, and this axe at an Alice Springs shopping centre.
There's been concerns raised in NT Parliament that the new laws could result in the racial profiling of Aboriginal people. That's a claim that the NT's Police Commissioner has refuted.
There's no racial profiling. We're indiscriminate. We want everyone, kids, adults. We're engaging with everyone.
Even people we're searching are, really appreciative that the police are actually doing something to try and reduce the amount of violent crime that's out there at the moment.
These wands now the new normal, but no magic fix for a crime issue that lingers on.
And in sports, 6 players who featured in this year's NRL Telstra Premiership Grand Final have been named in the Samoa side. Samoa will play its first game of the Pacific Championships against Australia in Townsville on October 14.
Premiership-winning Penrith Panthers quartet Stephen Crichton, Spencer Lanu, Isaac Tango and Brian To'o will be joined by Broncos duo Kenan Palacia and JC Arthurs in the new coach Ben Gardner's squad to take on Australia and New Zealand in the tournament starting mid this month. However, the Panthers 5'8" Jerome Luai ruled out with a shoulder injury. He re-aggravated in the win over the Broncos with fresh faces including Nigel Arce and Kyle Oluwapu are expected to spend time in the halves. Dubbed the Minister for Energy by Gardner, the coach said he was hopeful to see Luai join the squad and would still be a close part of the team. After guiding his side to their first ever Rugby League World Cup final last year, Samoa will again be led by Eels keeper Junior Polo, who said the tournament would provide his team with another opportunity to shock the world again. Samoa is hyped up for the crunch time against Australia on October 14. Terry Longwood, TV1 Sports.
Australia has announced its 21-man squad for the upcoming Pacific Test, with some of the biggest names in the NRL included in Mal Meninga's lineup. 8 players from Sunday night's grand final have earned a selection, including star Penrith halfback Nathan Cleary and powerhouse Broncos forward Payne Haas.
The most obvious and blatant snub from the Kangaroo squad was Rhys Wells, who starred for the Broncos throughout the season and led them to within a whisker of a drought-breaking premiership. Despite a mixed performance in the grand final loss to Penrith, the 21-year-old has been among the best players in the NRL across the 2023 season and, on form, was the best fullback in the competition. Wells also carved up in the State of Origin arena, shining in the first series for the Maroons as they won a second straight Shield, tearing New South Wales apart in the first 2 games. After coming out of Origin clearly ahead of opposing fullback James Tedesco, questions have been raised over Wells' omission. Gold Coast Titans wrecking ball David Fifita left out as well. This is perhaps the most puzzling decision from the Australian selectors, with the man who just claimed the Daily M Second Rower of the Year honours left out of the wider squad. Terry Longwood, TV1 Sports.
That's all for now. Join us at 6 this evening for the main news. Goodbye.
Or parts of acts published in the National Gazette of number 6 G690. There are 9 acts that I'm responsible over for administrating in full, and 20 acts where I share responsibility with other ministers. Deputy Speaker, what has become clearer is that there are currently a number of laws that intersect with my ministerial responsibilities. Some of these are already captured in acts, such as the Criminal Code Act of 1974 and its amendments, while others require official designation of ministerial responsibility
to ensure effective administration. Therefore, Deputy Speaker, the White Paper on Internal Security shall determine an appropriate legal framework to streamline our laws and provide clear and unambiguous line of delegation of powers, allowing for shared ministerial responsibility. Deputy Speaker, to my fellow ministers and parliamentarians, I stand here today urging you to unite to our resolve to address the internal security issues facing Papua New Guinea. It is only through our collective efforts that we can create a safer and more prosperous future for our citizens. Let us work together to strengthen our institutions, invest in our people, and restore peace and stability to every corner of our great nation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I commend this statement to the House.
The Honourable Governor for Morobe.
Country stable half the time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the Honourable Parliament take note of this paper presented by the Minister for Internal Security. And I want to advance debate on that statement.
Governor, make your debate.
First of all, I want to commend the Minister, Honourable Minister, for presenting the statement on the issue of national security in this country. And I want to commend him because this national security is a very important issue in this country. If we don't address the issue of national security in this country is bound to fail. This country is bound to suffer sufferings to the level that we don't want to see in this country. And Mr. Honourable Speaker, the Minister, I thank you for presenting that statement in relation to the law and order not in order in this country, and the disciplining force which is supposed to make sure the law and order are supposed to be in order are almost grossly incapable of making sure there is a law and order in this country. And I can see that you're making statement your plans to make sure that you address issue of law and order in this country. And you state out in this statement, and I perish the statement as you presenting it in this Parliament. And I want to say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that, Mr. Speaker, I live in the settlement, literally, in this country. I've been living there for a long time. And I live in the settlement where majority of the people who go to the polls and elect the people who are now in this Parliament, the majority of the people, they live in the settlement, Mr. Speaker, and they live in the villages. They're the majority people. They make sure that we come to Parliament. And the life, Mr. Speaker, in the settlement, Mr. Minister, I want to tell this honourable Parliament, Mr. Speaker, many people, our kids are graduating from colleges and the primary schools, high schools, any levels of education in this country, unable to find jobs. The government policy is not sufficient. And is not, if there's any policy, Mr. Speaker, not implementing those policies to make sure the issue of unemployment is addressed in this country more satisfactory than present state now, Mr. Speaker. Too many kids finish school in the settlement. They're not trained in the school. They're not trained in the school to become the gardeners and the planters and the fishermen. They're trying to work in the factory. They're trying to work in industry. They're trying to work in supermarkets to end the caste remuneration. Caste remuneration. Because the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the life in this country is all about money. And the li You can't carry a banana, go to a store and say, give me a tin fish. That's a long time. It's not allowed now. Go to the store with money and you buy something. And kids who are going to school, who are living in the settlement and the blocks, who have no job, Mr. Acting Speaker, what the hell? How are they going to sustain themselves? How are they going to sustain themselves? Those fellows who are working, any case or in the Malaysian, they're able to do it. But those thousands and thousands of people who are living in the settlement, how are they going to help themselves? They're not bunch of birds and they're not bunch of stones. Not beds have senses, but the stones have no senses. They're not bunch of stones. They're human beings like us. They got senses. They got feelings. What hungry or hungry? Mr. Acting Speaker, you, money man, you hungry. Okay, man, grassroots man is stable block and hungry. What do you mean hungry, yeah? But you can get stone and you build people up and you starve. Hey, you have to eat the loaf of bread. You have to eat rice. You have to buy yourself a clothes. You're going to live in a decent shelter. Those things enjoyed by the rest of Papua New Guineans who are employed, businessmen who's got money, these people who are educated, mind you, a lot of those people are university graduates, college graduates. They're finding it difficult. And they're the people who are fighting against this country. They're the people, they can't find a job. What are they going to do? Masul Kirimolia, Mr. Speaker. Masolino blow stop nothing. Masul blow walk here. Not supposed this is Masolino walk. Masul cooking mania, Mr. Acting Speaker. Masul cooking men and walk in trouble, Mr. Minister. Why you talking on this loud? We have to devise the policy for every kid that is going to every level of school, and that we must forecast the future for those kids like Japanese do. Japanese and the Chinese, Chinese got billions of population, and Japanese got thousands, billions too, but they make sure that every kid that is brought got a future, got a record, got a future. In this country, we don't have such things like that, Mr. Acting Speaker. Mr. Mandel, please, here. Huh? They have no future. This country belongs to them. You cannot say that I get up na igulong Mendi, I go to police lo Mendi. You don't have get up na to get up na igulong police lo Kirwagi. You stop na 9 miles, you will walk in trouble there. Get up na igulong Kirwagi. You don't have get up na to get up na igulong Pinsafen. Hey, this country belongs to the employed, unemployed, educated, able, disabled. This country's leaders must act responsibly now, Mr. Acting Speaker. We must address the unemployment. If we don't address the unemployment, Mr. Acting Speaker, you are going to have a scenario in Cuba, Mr. Acting Speaker. That's the Castro, I mean, walking revolution there. One day you're going to have revolution in this country. Be very careful. We have to address our young generation who are not employed. I can see the brighter future for them. I can see the brighter future. What is the future for simple grassroots villager of Papua New Guinea? And what is the brighter future for a simple block and settlement people? Hi, their country, men and women. Mr. Acting Speaker, you are talking about all sorts of things. You must address now unemployment. That is the biggest problem we face now. And the police, Mr. Acting Speaker, hi, police, Mr. Block here. One money to fight lo enemy play report. Hey, kisa money come na vitla pa Petro Fatsan. All police to go police ro bumayon to ya. Mr. Acting Minister, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Yudi go open Bumay police station ya. Igulo namel trulo police lo morobene you come ya. Why you come ask him governor no buy fuel? Hey, this is the constitutional office, Mr. Acting Speaker. Police is the constitutional office under Section 225 of the Papua New Guinea Constitution. Government should give grant in accordance with the constitutional provisions under Section 225. No one gives nothing to the DDA, the PPP, whatever, PC, people will call them. DSIP and the PSIP, and hope that those people are going to go and give the money to the police. They're going to build a road. They're going to do other things, Mr. Acting Speaker. Speaker, money you come to you, buy building road, you go along. When I'm Galambonia, and nobody you don't give him police. Constitution requires under Section 225, Mr. Prime Minister, take note, that there should be a budget for that. Budget for the police, budget for the court, budget for the CIS, budget for the army, budget for the public solicitor, budget for the public prosecutor. They are constitutional office. And the rights of money and facility guaranteed to them under Section 225. Government of this country, consecutive government of this country had not done it. Now policeman here, Mr. To boy policeman, sumuk policeman, beer policeman, marijuana policeman too. How comes by you got this second policeman in this country? Huh? Policeman sumuk marijuana ya? You know the family give money me? Hey, you go down over there, right here, Mr. Speaker. Governor, you are in staff. Yes. Hey, you man through, you go on over there. Huh? You go on over, you man through, but you go on over there. You want a kind man. All money drink marijuana not. Smoking marijuana not drink. When I'm homebrew now, local staff here. Police probably you wear. Mr. Speaker. Police probably you wear. Police too, yeah. Marijuana police now. When I can drag policeman to go down one over and drink or so go on in Tumblr. In the National Capital District. You know me talk to the Conable of Pinsapen, you will talk to. That is the policeman. Short of fuel. Kalbi Bagalap. No communication system in the war God. House Blumul sleep Bagalapia. House Blumolia. Policeman will sleep Blumuluk like come up. One to criminal and the camp can come up time to get man no come up policeman. Or policeman. And Papa Nikini Mania. You know, white money you stop believing it. Also, then shoot by good sleep and men they come here. That is our life today, Mr. Acting Speaker. Policeman, where policeman? You know what person brought policeman stuff. Army people talk to you know army. You know army, yeah. The public servant or finance minister officer or whatever. All army, yeah. Now CIS. Only no sleep good now, Mr. Acting Speaker. Time money no sleep good, money no keke good, spirit blowing will walk and no stop good. Possible money. This is the problem in this country. One will be two problem in this country. Problem blue power, now problem blue police now. Law and order. And two power, people got money. We're going to talk, we're going to attend to it tomorrow. We're going to attend to that next month. We're going to attend to it. We're going to put money in the budget. You don't going to get money people in this country. Mark him, you bring the country down to the parliament. You can't sit down in parliament. You can win in power, you can sit down. Power, legally want to, you don't get power belonging. Legally, power, you don't get power belonging. So powerful people, you got more power. Now you can sit down there. Now you will to suck him, go come and make him stop. Police is in big time in the country, minister. Everyone will legally something. Now plenty policeman in Lapunia, Mr. Acting Speaker. Plenty Lapun policeman here. Criminally no Lapun. Criminally, you have breathe new peace, fluent science, and a bloody grease, the party power, muscle more, you disturb ya. Now you laugh on police, but you're going to fight one thing, you policeman. You long man, no, you laugh on, and by killing me one side, you die. Mr. Acting Speaker. You must retire all this little policeman, you go now. Plain bleed, retire one him up. Me no look at plain, retire all police, on this little paper. Me no look at one retire him all harmy, skin die, select. No, I'm sorry. Thank you all working before. But now you're there, all select here. Resign him all, bring him all. Yambla man, policeman come inside. Yambla policeman, no policeman come inside. So now army too. Yambla man come inside. Common sense. You don't need to go to university to know this common sense. Common sense you born one time, yeah? Let me stop, yeah? We need to make sure we retire the whole policemen, whole army, all correctional lifters, do the new recruitment, put the money in there, put the new recruitment, get the formidable, physically fit, mentally fit, and everything fit. That's what we need in this country. We need a pragmatism, not talking, not writing, too much paper in this parliament. We need action. Action now. Nobody can tell me that we have no money in this country. Gaman about. Gaman about us and you got money in this country. Hey, pogere stabia. Hey, oktedi stabia. Oktedi you take control of mortgage up now, yeah? Huh? Elezi stabia. Mumani kamisa no fisia. Ah, you go collective tax on more than a given legally go back here. You will fight for you stabia. Ah, big money come here. You don't have to get money in me. Not get money in this country. There is money. But the wise spending of that money is not there. There must be the utility of wise spending. That's what we need in this country. And address the law and order. You are talking about police. You're talking about tourist promotion, Mr. Acting Speaker. You talk to big business by come up. You talk to big fisheries by come up. You talk to this by come up. Hey, time. Luna order. Inu stop good now. Inu sleep good stop. This bloody irrelevant. Irrelevant. And when you not come up. Look at meaning blowing. Huh? Sorry, me withdrawing bloody. Also, ma.
Thank you, Governor.
Heat blow. Sorry, me withdrawing Speaker. That's all. And we could stop finish that you are in finish. Mr. Acting Speaker. Law and order is stop. Law and order is stop. Order something by come law order. Mr. Acting Speaker. Time law and order is stop. You know what good order by establish for a country. Common sense. You don't need to go to university. You don't need to get a PhD to understand this thing. It's only a common sense. We have to address this, Mr. Acting Speaker. Address him. Put him money inside now. Equip police. Equip him police. Equip him army good. Because under the Constitution, by joint work by come up long time low heavy. Police, army, and the CIS by joint by come up. That's when they are disciplinarily fit, physically fit, moral, high spirit stuff. You what will begin man stuff long by you shoot long all you will die nothing, Mr. Acting Speaker. And we have to make it work. Not just talking here, Mr. Speaker. We got enough resources. Put the money in to make sure that we build our police force to a formidable police in this country. Formidable police. That is why I fight with the Australians. Me fight with the Australia. You see independent police now. You don't go in Australia, the police from Australia comes inside here. Huh? You don't make it Muslim, okay? Murbi listen to this country. Murbi by go country belong yet. Mix some independence from independence. And then you give like give him independence to go not blah blah. Hi, what kind? You select man, you know supposed to come up leader of the country. You going to stop now making decision kangi. Or you know working decision good. Mr. Acting Speaker, all Papua New Guineans, they're born warriors. Papua New Guinean men and women, they're born warriors. Me talking American Army, Mr. Acting Speaker. American Army, come on, let me talk him all. You American, you must understand. We Papua New Guineans, every Papua New Guinean, men and women, they're born warriors. You Americans, you are trained warriors. But Papua New Guineans, we're born warriors. You can't fight now to Australia. You still can fight now, you look him. Mangi want him to do house no or something move na you bike in the nothing. Mr. Acting Speaker. Mr. Acting Speaker. That is why I said let's put more money into the police force. No one to talk. No one to talk nothing. No one to talk nothing. We need action now, Mr. Prime Minister. Put the money as special budget for the police force. Special budget. Listen to the police, Mr. Acting Chairman. You Chairman. Mr. Acting Speaker. Listen to the police. Listen to the Army. Listen to the CIS. They are bunch of professional people who are trained to make sure there is order. Trained to enforce the law. You and I know what? Governor Blong, you are here, same policeman. That's what me also mean a policeman. Majority mean a policeman. They're trained. And they're the people who give the advice to the government. When they say, this is what we must do. This is an amount of money that you have to put in the budget to make sure the police is effective and is formidable to fight any crimes in this country. When do you advise you of how much money you're going to put in? My goodness gracious, for the goodness sake, put the money. Mr. Acting Speaker, the CIS talking you put in money based on advice from all, because it's a professional law enforcing institution. The Army do one kind. Put the money. when the disciplining forces is in order, a formidable disciplining force in this country, that will tell that this country is powerful, ready for action anytime. Hey, sign up for army, put him the American army, we're going to talk about here. Or put him on an aircraft carrier, China to put him aircraft carrier. Huh? You go to talk to Washington, Istanbul, and China come inside here. Australia and America will peace, no one to talk about TV in America. When the disciplinary forces is in order, the country can feel safe and secure. Thank you. And when the country...
Honorable Governor, we have point of order.
Close to me, I finish, Governor.
Please, you withdrawing talk where you walk in law, Australia and US. You made some comments that are inappropriate. Let's just be mindful of them. They are our development partners. You don't need blood making talk. And point of order, me.
Yeah, but you have to specifically tell me what the point of order. Yes. Point. You can't just make a general statement, Mr. Speaker. Specifically point to me. No human being in this country is perfect.
Honorable Governor, we cannot debate on the point of order being raised. I think the Governor for Oro have raised a valid point of order that we, and any general comment we made, we had in respect to our partner countries.
Yeah, but
I would ask you to withdraw any statement.
Yeah, but I don't know what I'm going to withdraw.
I think talk you talk lo on peace stop or on dislaya but you mas rausim display talk.
I don't know what I'm going to withdraw.
Honorable Governor, if you don't have any to withdraw, I think you have a minute to finish your statement.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Minister. You talk at the end that we have to collectively support your plans. We will support you. But I want us to be pragmatic. I want us to be pragmatic. I don't want just a paper in this parliament and nothing takes place and the paper is eating dust. We need pragmatic. But in that mission, you can have my support. We must work together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, allowing me to talk.
The honourable member for Suave, and then I'll recognize the opposition.
I can't let you people carry on, and our people are suffering.
Before I address the Honourable House, I'd just like to thank the Minister for updating Parliament on internal security matters, and I think I speak for Trevor when I say that we need police in the district, Deputy Speaker. The challenge of law and order is real and it affects us every day. And on a broader note for the country, if we don't get this situation of law and order and start creating a safe, conducive environment, then we're going to have a real challenge attracting foreign direct investment, getting people to invest in the country, and even internally, we're going to have big issues. If the communities aren't safe, if we're getting harassed, if we're getting robbed, if we're getting stabbed, if we're getting murdered. And law and order has to be the #1 issue that this Parliament must address. Before we talk about investments, we talk about anything else. Now, some of my comments to the statement presented by the Internal Security Minister is that in 2023 at the start, the Mara Barroso government gave a significant amount of budget support to the Internal Security Minister. And today I was expecting to find out how this money has been spent. What have been the outcomes that we've achieved? How much money has the Internal Security Ministry received through budget appropriation? Have we received 200 million, 400 million, $500 million? This is what I wanted to see today. Now, to put things in perspective, a white paper, when we engage professionals, it should take no longer than 4 to 6 weeks to have a white paper on internal security drafted for leaders of parliament to debate on. 4 to 6 weeks. Why has the good minister waited for 1 year in the ministry to say that now we need to start drafting a white paper? What's he been doing in the last 12 months? So, with that in mind, I seriously encourage the good Internal Security Minister to get his house in order and make sure that this white paper, it's done and done expeditiously so that there's clear direction for the RPNGC and we can start moving in the right direction for law and order in the country, Mr. Speaker. As a member of Parliament and moving around the country and looking at issues in my district and my province, in Simbu province, we have a real capacity issue. I want to know what's the strategy, what's the plan to not only increase the people in uniform, the men and women in uniform, which I absolutely salute, but about the assets, about the dilapidated buildings, about the housing, about police insurance, the equipment, the weapons, the uniforms, and the list goes on. What are we going to do about the culture? The good governor just made reference to the fact that the men and women in uniform don't respect the uniform. They're chewing betel nut, they're drinking beer, they're smoking. So what's the overall strategy to address the culture within the RPNGC? So we become the envy of the Pacific. Mr. Speaker, I strongly urge the good minister to expedite his efforts to do the white paper, to do the national policy on internal security, and seriously look at devolving these powers to the provinces, where each governor and each province knows exactly what their law and order requirements are for each of their provinces. We can't continue to centralize this in Waigani and expect us to have law and order effectiveness in the districts and the provinces. I thank the good Internal Security Minister for all his work, and I just urge him to work faster. And I stand here ready to support him in all law and order efforts that he's going to be engaged in. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Your opposition leader.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I also want to thank the Minister for Internal Security and the regional member for Bougainville, the Honorable Peter Siamalili Jr., for tabling this paper. And as we all know, the citizens of our country, they need to live in a safe and secure environment. And it used to be very peaceful back in the days, so Deputy Speaker. From the 70s up, we don't have the kind of crime and the lawlessness we have today. And as we were going into the 80s, I think it was restricted to just pickpocketing and all this kind of crime. And then in the mid-80s, we started seeing bank robbers, people holding up banks and stuff. And the situation has gotten worse. In fact, the new emerging crimes like the drugs, meths, and all of these things are now happening in our country. And yet, whilst the number of crime waves have increased, have risen, the size of the police have not increased in line with that. And so we have a real situation, and I do acknowledge that the government is trying its best to recruit more policemen. It still cannot meet the increase in the crime, and it's happening everywhere. When we have crime in one part of the country, they send police up there, and they starve the rest of the country of police, men and women. And so we have a situation, and I do understand that there are plans that the minister has highlighted for them to look at the white paper, to look at how they can cooperate more with international cooperation and assistance to assist us in this area. But we have a problem here, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We are trying to fix and address this problem, but we are not looking at the model that we are trying to design for ourselves in terms of the approach. And I think the Honorable Member for Suave has highlighted that. We really need to look at the entire structure of the police force. We need to decentralize that function with CIS also. Give it to the provinces. The provinces must have their own rank and file. The police commissioner in its provinces. Let them have all the powers, so that when you want to control and centralize this is the problem we are having. Crime is happening everywhere. The governors are complaining. The citizens are complaining because there's no attention. There's no one there to address this problem. Let the provinces have their own police so that they can address these issues themselves. There's a tribal fight somewhere else. This is police because this community, this province does not have tribal fights. So let them deal with themselves. And I would recommend strongly that instead of looking at addressing things holistically, instead of trying to centralize police the way we used to centralize in the past since independence coming up now, the environment has changed in this country. We have progressed, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We cannot continue to approach lawlessness in this country in the same way that we have been doing since independence and expect a different outcome. And I really think that we need to decentralize this function seriously so that the national government can only look after things like transnational crime, border security, and those other intel and other police functions of the police. It can be done at this level. But the normal general police work, everything else, give it to the provinces. Appoint the police commissioner of East New Britain. Appoint the police commissioner of West New Britain. Appoint a police commissioner for Sundown province. They have their own police commissioner, deputy police commissioner, the entire rank and file. Police, give money, law, let them deal with their own, provinces deal with their own issues. So that you may look in some of the cynically down. We cannot continue approaching things, lawlessness in this country in the same way that we have been doing for the last 48 years. And I think it calls for us to relook at the model so that when we do the white paper, when we look at the challenges and security, the national government can focus on what matters most. And we should start trusting the provinces to start dealing with their own issues. And really contribution to meet us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Banimo Green.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Firstly, let me commend the Minister for Internal Security for his statement today with regards to his plans to formulate a white paper on internal security. I am yet to see a similar statement from the Defense Minister as to when the Defense White Paper is going to be ready, and also on the Foreign Affairs Ministry as to when the Foreign Affairs White Paper is going to be brought to Parliament. But on this particular statement, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what concerns me is, we are coming up with the plans to formulate the white paper. This white paper should have been formulated a long time ago, similar to what I've mentioned about the Defense Force and the Foreign Affairs. I am more interested in addressing the current issue that's facing us in the country. I've always advocated that before we talk about development, we must address the law and order situation in our country. The practical situation is that the law and order situation in our country is spiraling out of control. In here, I have not seen any action plan. What is our force readiness to address different kinds of law and order situation? We have the normal law and order situation about robbery, pickpocketing and all that, and then now you have imagined the tribal fights. Then you have the kidnapping that's going on. Then you have the drugs smuggling. Before we go into addressing this issue, I have not seen in this white paper as to how we're going to fix the police force itself and the CIS, the welfare of our policemen and women, the welfare of our correctional services. You know, in the military we used to say, if you house your men well, if you feed them well and you clothe them well, you ask them to jump, they will ask you, how why, sir? How why? We have over years allowed our policemen and women, our CIS, our defense force to continue to suffer. You go and visit their barracks, they all run down. Their pay condition, their uniforms, they are supposed to wear 3 pairs of uniform. And you expect them to perform their duty. And I tell you, they will give you 0. They will give you 0 because you are not looking after their welfare. You deploy the policemen to the islands, they leave behind their wives and children. And when they are up there, they don't have money to give back to their people, to their families. And then you don't pay the allowances on time. You expect to come to this floor of parliament with a white paper and say you're going to have these things implemented. You can't implement it because in reality you have not looked at the people who will implement this white paper for you. When are we going to fix all the barracks of the police in the country? When are we going to fix all the barracks of the CIS in the country, of the defense force in the country? These are your 3 main security agencies. We continue to ignore. We're putting more money into Connect PNG, but we are not concentrating on our security in the country. You can build up new buildings. Tomorrow they will burn it down, they'll pull it down because of tribal war. You must have fixed their welfare first, then you put money into operations. I've already debated before. This year's budget of more than 400 million has disappeared. There's no more money in the police force. Where's all the money gone? And trust me, all the money has gone into higher cars. And how about the welfare of our policemen and women, of the CIS personnel, of the military personnel? Let's start really thinking real life, practical situation that we are facing in our country. When you have fixed their welfare, then you talk about their code of conduct. No, the police are involved in criminal activities today because their salary is not enough to sustain their families. They also need to send their kids to good schools. Do you blame them? We blame ourselves as a government because we are not addressing their welfare. Mr. Deputy Speaker, law enforcement, we have the laws in our country already. Enforcement is the problem. Then the core issue goes back to the welfare of the policemen. Most of the policemen are now escorting the Asians, the businessmen and women, because that's an easy way to make money. Because they don't have enough money in their pay packet. They ask you to go and pay for their fuel to go and solve your problem because there is no money for operations. Practical situation, no money to put fuel in the vehicle. We talk about border security. Forget about talking about border security because there is no existence of police along the borders. There is crime taking place almost every minute of every year. Illegal firearm smuggling, illegal drug smuggling. And do you know that there are also illegal human beings coming into our country? We do not have monitoring, proper security on the border. We can talk about all these things, we can come up with a good write-up on the paper, but the practical situation is far from the reality. The counter-terrorism, we are not ready for counter-terrorism. We don't have the capacity. You know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what we are now seeing is new level of crime coming in, kidnapping. In this white paper, you must capture that there should be no ransom for kidnapping in this country. There should be no compensation for any tribal war that's taking place. We must go and arrest those people. To date, I have not heard of any tribal leader being arrested for the actions in the tribal warfare. We talk about we'll go after you, we'll go and hunt you down, we'll go and shoot you down. Nothing has happened. We can only talk. And they will continue to do it because we have allowed them and encouraged them to do it. Our intelligence gathering. We should not just wake up in the morning, no, there's a killing in Laigam, and we are surprised about it. Our intelligence should be pinpoint. By now, police should know the hotspots in the country. In the city, we should know the hotspots. We have hotspots in Erima, in Geru, all these hotspots. You have to beef up manpower. We must not be reactionary. Our intelligence must be top. Buy some boy seller on the street, put him on a payroll. He'll be your intelligence gathering machine. All these things. We don't have to, these are all common sense. Emergency response. We don't have the capacity for many emergency response. When are we going to address this issue? These are security issues we are talking about. These are things that will make the environment conducive for foreign investment and also for our citizens to move around freely. Today I tell you, young women and young men and mothers cannot jump on freely in the bus. They cannot answer the phones because the phones will be snatched from them. It's an everyday issue. Improving the living and working conditions of our security force personnel must be #1 priority. Cutting down on hire cars should be now done away with already. We have talked about this many times. When are we going to refleet the entire CIS with the CIS vehicle, with the police vehicles, with the military vehicles? Go back and revive their workshops. Put fuel bowsers in there. They used to work before. They have their own mechanics before. Now we are taking it to private workshops. Ayakars are making duplicate invoices. That's where we see economic leakages. This is where the money drain is. We got to close it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, capability and capacity building in the three disciplinary forces is very important. It's very vital. Papua New Guinea is the place where many people want to come because naturally, when you arrive at the airport, Papua New Guineans, you see the first impression you get is smile on everybody's face. Everybody wants to come here. But our security apparatus is not operational so that we can give them that guarantee of an environment of a country where destination for every tourist to come. We should not be worried concentrating too much on extractive industry. Our focus should be in tourism, in agriculture. And to bring more tourists to this country, we got to guarantee them the security. And the magic is this: look after the welfare and the conditions of our policemen and women, of our CIS personnel, of our military personnel. You ask them to jump, they will ask you how I said. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Poponeta.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I too would like to contribute a little bit to this debate and just to support the statement of our good Minister for Internal Security. Firstly, me like talk of first statement blow Minister since he's become a minister, so me like congratulate him lo provide him direction blow police now, so that me got some clear idea. We have some distinctions on the effort that he's put in versus what's been thrown around in the public speculating that our law and order is out of control. I do appreciate the debates. Now, me having plenty of sides work law, kamea work law, talk law, the issues that are currently present in the country. So the minister that inherited these issues, they're mostly legacies that have been carried on from years of neglect by governments in the past. And what he's trying to do now, I can see that he's trying to address these issues. 2 plus something me looking where I believe in his statement he should have deliberated a little bit more on. Number one is the capacity building. Now, me looking was recently they've recruited around 500 new recruits for the police force. And the reason why the number was kept at that level and because of the fact is that the college is, or the institute is unable to take in any more numbers higher than 400 or 500 recruits only been kissing. If the government is serious about increasing the police capacity and want to train police force, the question comes back is that if we're going to train them through the same police training institution that's been set up and that's been around for a while, the trainers that are they the same trainers who've been training our police for the last 10, 15 years, who are going to be training this new police force that we're putting our trust in to be the next generation of law enforcement personnel? Now, if the training that's going to be given to them by these existing trainers that are there, then the outcome will basically be the same. So my suggestion as part of the capacity building is that we need to look at whether we can connect our police training institutes to current higher education like universities as well, where instead of using the police as a place to try and build maturity, build the level of their understanding, the way of intelligence, one way to look at it is to start looking at possibilities of engaging universities to help train our police officers. And the Bomana only be used as a physical part of the training, which only can be 6 months. The thorough education of equipping our young policemen for the future with knowledge and maturity and skilling them up with better intellectual knowledge is through a university. Either we do that, or number two is that we look at the possibility of recruiting students to attend Bomana from university. Let's set a very high benchmark for our students to meet. So that way, I think right now, the universities and higher institutions are graduating over 10,000 young people. So we already have a pool of young people that we can be able to push into
Bomana Police College as part of that exercise. So if we want to talk about capacity building, in my view, we need to look at that as well and try and build a knowledgeable police force so that they are able to deal with the ongoing issues that are taking place right now. And then another thing we need to look at capacity building is that if we start training police officers, where do we send them to? Which provinces do we engage them in? Now, for example, suppose you sali wapla policeman from the Highlands region, go down lo, say, the northern region, which is the coastline lo Yumi. Now, suppose policeman here like Bokim Sampla arrest or Kainosem, and he goes into a community, all local guys will be speaking their dialect now, this la Highlands man, he wouldn't understand what they're saying. So they can collaborate a story. Now, Haitim, one of something like Haitim, without him knowing. So these are the challenges we need to look at and how best we can be able to address these issues. So what I'm saying is that when we start doing capacity building, because we have over 836 languages in our country, and the challenges that come with it are quite large. So one way to look at it is that each province, we should give them a target. That if you, as part of our capacity building, each province must produce or select about 30, 40, 50, 60, even 100 of the young people from that community who have university or higher education qualifications, Lugimlo police, and then when they're trained, they're put back into those communities again. The ideas of housing can be addressed because all Blodisla area, easy law, stop what I'm all community blow, na attending all jobs to blow. Now, the community engagement program too, and number two, something like Tok Tok Longem is the community-based constables. This used to work many years ago, and then all of a sudden we stopped it. Suppose you mean like addressing law and order at the family base, at the community base, village base, we need to seriously look at reintroducing the community-based constables. That way, each problem that is in the village, you already have law representation there already, who are able to address this, rather than every time there's a community base or a problem in the village, the first thing only looking, ringing police lo town lo come na addressing issue lo place. If we can strengthen the community-based policing or community-based constables, I believe that is one way of addressing quite a lot of the issues that are starting at the community level, village level, and expanding out into the town areas. The other point that our opposition leader raised about handing over the responsibilities back to the provinces, why can't we take another approach and approach a similar way in other countries like Australia? They have state police. So why can't we segregate our province into 4 different regions? And then instead of having provincial-based police, we have regional-based police. So they have their own structures. Rather than recreating too many little structures back in the districts and provinces, which then creates a lot of problems we try to address and fund each of those areas. So instead of looking at provincial policing structure, why don't we look at regional policing structures? So that you have the COP for the region, for Southern, COP for the region of Highlands, for Northern, for Highlands, and even the Western and idea of trying to segregate and create an additional region. Why can't we look at that possibility? That's one way of addressing law and order within our community. So I'm just thinking, Blomi, and then there's been echoing calls here to bring in federal police or police from outside. If Australians have very strict guidelines on how they want to be part of this arrangement, can we look at other countries as well we can try and build relationship with to strengthen our police force? These are some things that we can look at, good minister, that we can help to build and strengthen the capacity of our police force within our country. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, me firstly look forward you sincere long this time. Deputy Speaker he go outside. But Mr. Assistant Speaker long number one acknowledge him talk long Internal Security Minister. Now all get an comment and talk where leaders of the country only work him the house blow talk, the house blow, you may make him decision. Plenty of blow talk, if not all of them, very relevant to one of the biggest issue facing us, if not the biggest issue that is facing us in as far as challenge from country development issues that you may face with. Pass them through me like making one blood talk. When I speak, this talk pisin so that majority lo imi all get a Papua New Guineans in mas harem na kisim this blood talk. Plenty up me round too, Mr. Walking this blood talk, Mr. Assistant Speaker. Lo look at him law and order and walk lo yimi all get and walk lo yimi all get right across the length and breadth of our country, including yimi all get leadership at the national leadership, provincial leadership, na district leadership, LG leadership, one-time ward leadership, you may all line elected into office. Napla talk me like walk him, whilst and walk you may all get. This is the easiest, least cost or no cost contribution every Papua New Guinean citizen will do to your country. When we protect law and order, you may be an passing long stop underneath the law. Suppose you may not brook him law, na cause him problem. That is the easiest, least cost, if not no cost, contribution every citizen of our country can do to better your country. You don't need him government to invest in millions into the law and order sector. Suppose you may all get as citizens. You may behave, bear him law. Now you may stop good, but country but not spending limited resource you may got into this sector. Resource you may got here, you may like talk about recruiting more police. There's a cost element to recruiting police. Police operation, there's a cost element to recruiting police, Mr. Assistant Speaker. So economy of the country and functional same. Most one play envelope that's all. One of you may collect one play year, you may cut him, you may tell him. Loan order kiss him, school kiss him, housing kiss him, road to kiss him, pay blow public servant including all police kiss him, pay blow judge and magistrate kiss him. Now neck blow me too, talk lo put him money lo police, but even is the same lo talk maski kiss him lo DSIP that give him police lo. DSIP too you kiss him lo side. Mr. Assistant Speaker, ogara activity blow government, he got cost long. Now resource blow government, lo 1 year, lo English word, all call him finite. He got limit blow, no got abundance of resource. Like this year, you may pass him 24 billion budget and minimum revenue, but you may kiss him including legally dinner money, you may kiss him, lo put him on top because need him stop at the threshold. We need to meet that need, including law and order need. So me come back, lo talk to me. Citizens of this country who said you harem through TV and radio. Now you may your leader stop that you may go along place with me too. One on up talking all the people. There is a cost element to every law breaking in our country. There is a cost element to every new police we recruit. I'd rather recruit new teacher, new health worker than recruiting new police. But the reality is we need to also recruit new police. Now, Mila give him some statistics, Mr. Assistant Speaker. Today, you may got 6,244 policemen. That's all, law country believe me. You may need him at the current population threshold, you may need him around 26,000 policemen. 26,000 policemen. The last time you may make him systematic recruit police, replace him, put him nuclear, retrench him, was under NA-led government long 2010. Our last administration, only starting one ad hoc training again in 2017, that's all. 2018, 2019, come, you may not starting training. Now you may pick him up, retrain him again. Underneath law Nubla government, you may come back inside, law 2022, behind him thinking law police minister. We target to reach 10,000 police threshold at the very earliest. In fact, within this MDDP 4, you may launch it. That will not be adequate. That is too far from the 26,181 police we need for the current population we got. But at least 10,000 is better than the 6,000 noble policeman, current police we got. Thank you, Thomas. The current 6,244 police we got right throughout the length and breadth of the country. Yes, you got discipline issue too. But you too, man, Mary, under the circumstances of leader, long Vanimo Green, Tok. You walk where housing all right yet, car no stop yet, uniform brook. Now you walk, Namitok. Thank you, Lord, the members long police force right throughout our country. From the commissioner, you go down. Now, government, ignorant law this status quo. That's why we have put in place short-term measure as well as mid-term and long-term measure long addressing this plan. Now, me like report, part of the short-term measure achievements. Mr. Assistant Speaker, underneath Law Commissioner Manning, over 300 policemen only terminate finish law discipline measures. Planeta Yimisa Tok, na Samlata Yimisa Tok, thank you, walking come up. Over 300 policemen have been terminated for discipline measures. At the same time, Yimi starting recruit finish, more than 400 going into training as we speak. Because unfortunately, capacity of Bomana can take him 300 to 500 at a time. There is no more additional capacity. We're looking at how we could ramp him up training, double training, triple training, and police commissioner has been tasked through the minister to look at defense training, CIS training, and police training, including the joint force training long lay. You can bring him one time, now start him massive training of police man and Mary at the very earliest. But I also talk clear long Yimi. This of this 300, about 15 police dismissed for drug-related offense. Drug-related offense. So all good policeman blow me, you stop URM. Country need him you long stand up straight and make him walk. Drink drive is now becoming a terminable offense. Bagrabbing police asset, losing gun is now becoming a terminable offense. Now me like talk sir long training is start finish. Me give instruction to police commissioner. All new blood training but sign him probation one time state that for 5 years you don't have holding boy smoke beer. Now you don't have seen gambling. You don't have holding boy smoke beer, now stop gambling 5 years, probation, but you come a full policeman. Papua New Guinea got plenty grade 12 dropouts or like come a policeman too. But the side you go inside, you're privileged to go inside law. So training, 5-year grace period, no boy, no smoke, no beer. Me claim right blue, but it's a qualified right, not an inherent right. I have a choice. As your employer, state has a choice to pick, and if we have a choice to pick, we'll pick non-drinkers, non-boy, non-smoke, and I make no apology for making this statement. We want to infuse quality into our police force system and not people who can succumb to other activities on the side. So those instructions have gone so that we have quality police now we start to train. And for so long, we have never been training. That's why we have to make this mess. And me like give me blood to this house, what blood statistics. Since 1975, you may been got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 police commissioner. Average life of police commissioner, 2.5 years. Mr. Assistant Speaker, Nubla Prime Minister come, Nubla Commissioner come, Nubla Deputy Commissioner come inside, Nubla PPC go inside, politician too, you may like him, PPC blow you me yet. We have all contributed to the decay our country is in today. Let's admit this one. Let's live up to this one. And we all have to rebuild up from ground zero. There is no quick fix solution. Today, Minister similarly doesn't have 100% solution for 1 year, let alone the next 5 years. There must be consistent effort in this sector. And some of you can grow tired of hearing me, but that is the reality. It faces us. We have to accept this, and we have to work through this. 19th police commissioner, met him 19th time in forming government of the country. Each prime minister, you got each commissioner. And how do you expect stability when you have rotations happening like this? The old police commissioner that goes out with his team. No wonder why many outstanding investigations have not been completed. And crime, including white-collar crimes, remain proliferated in the atmosphere of rotations that is taking place in police leadership. Those who feast and feed off the corruption in Waigani, for instance, especially like the rotation of police commissioners that is taking place. This is a statement of fact, and I want to indicate to this House that we are working. In the temporary measures that we are putting into place, there is restructure taking place in police as I speak. The police commissioner is no longer secretary of the police department. We have, about this parliament has changed this law, he is just the police commissioner today. And when he's police commissioner, he picks his deputies. The deputies will not be picked by cabinet with political spin to it. He picks his deputies. He's got 4 years to run his police force. He picks his deputies, they pick the ACPs, and they pick the PPCs. So that restructure has taken place. He's no longer also secretary for police, but he's just pure police commissioner. Underneath the display, you may relook him structure along deputy police. Bougainville got deputy police slogan finish. We're now bringing back one more deputy police commissioner. And that structure is taking place. Department of Personal Management hopefully expedites this process at the very earliest. The empowerment that the good opposition leader he mentioned him, Assembly Talk. We're looking seriously at empowerment through ACP in a federal-like structure. The ACPs have a power of control, discipline, budgeting, and they run it. So the ACP at the regional level integrate the PPCs and work well with the PPCs. We're looking at ensuring that PPC is infused with good leadership. PPCs make a lot of difference, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Assistant Speaker. I point to you without sounding any trumpet, but I point to Chief Superintendent Joe Tondop, PPC Hela. Police Commissioner and Department of Personal Management has not given Hela and Ziwaka new police based on ceiling approved in 2019 or 2018. They still remain with their 60 policemen in Hela province. Yet when a new PPC goes in with minimal interference, he gets to work. Today in Hela, over 300 people already arrested, tribal warriors included, tribal fight people included. Just because we don't go to the media doesn't mean no work is happening. Some like to go to media in small things. We don't go to media all the time. Over 300 arrested. They're in Buevi, they're in Baisu, they're in Hawa as I speak, including Council President Blomi at Luwan LLG Blomi, House Blogan and Garni Silip, Police in Atogam, Council President, Prime Minister Marape Nogat, go inside, arrest him, today I'm stop long cell. One PPC makes a difference. Governors, you sing out law here. Fix your PPCs. If the commissioner wants to put a good PPC inside, don't stand in the way. Don't stand in the way. These are temporary measures we are doing, and we cry on one side and we request on the other side. Let's find a finer balance. We're also setting up special police unit, and I want to give special commendation. The capacities are far off from the special police forces we have elsewhere. But I want to appreciate the few policemen who were mobilized to go into, for instance, the kidnapping that took place in Bosavi, far place, assisted by local leadership in both Western Province, Hela and Southern Highlands and Gulf. The police went in. So we're setting up a special police unit, and I want to announce here today, the police minister knows this, a pool of special police will be pulled together, about 200 of them. They will be on high call-out, unnamed, unmarked. They'll be not identified. They're on call-out for internal threat issues that happens in our country. And this is happening as I speak. The police commissioner is pulling 200 men forced together, setting up, starting December, they'll be trained in a special way. They train, these are no-nonsense police we're setting up to have a handle on hotspot areas in the speediest and quickest way. The kidnapping that happened in Bosavi was assisted by the special police that went in. And I want to thank them, they know who they are. There was no money, like 3.5 million or 3 million, as many said in the public place. The local community contributed food, pig and some resource to make peace, and the police moved in, surrounded. We retrieved those who were kidnapped unharmed and unraped. Unharmed, unraped, unabused. Sometimes it's a total planting, and even looks out or walking come up backside. We don't announce everything that takes place, but this is a reality. People's house, I need to put this record down. Mr. Thank you. Along this special unit of 30 police who were deployed, ready, and to go in, and they were moving into the place. And based on local information, the kidnappers had to release. Not Blaside Island, blow you me. One New Zealand pilot only kidnap him, all not release him yet. Lo him lo here. You may bagaran more police to me, but some good blood too only stop, not make him slow walk. And I want to indicate to this house, we're stepping up a special police unit. About 200 of them. They'll be unnamed, unmarked, unnumbered, trained to do highly skilled work that is required of them in high areas that need special police insertion. May I also talk clear? Also, Mibla stepping up discipline of police, and I'm announcing finish over 310 dismissed, including 15 related to drug. We're fighting corruption, and I want